Good afternoon and welcome to the June 2nd regular meeting of Council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. We'll get right to it here, folks. We got a bit of an agenda going on here. So first off, we have the consent agenda, but I'm going to just start off with a little heads up commercial. Yesterday, I was down at the community park for the repainting of the labyrinth. Down in our community park at the end of our boardwalk. It was a very big community event, very well attended by numerous artists. Saturday was a bit messy because of the rainfall we had, but Sunday turned out to be just a bonus day. And there's lots of people down there. I went down there with my daughter anyways to see it, and I got the personal tour. But it was just such a great feeling of community with all these artists, and they're truly transforming this area into a remarkable place in our community. So I'm much appreciative for that. I'll just give a little commercial now. They have the official ceremony, the Labyrinth Painting Renewal Celebration is at the community park this Saturday, June 7th at 11 a.m. So if you want to come down and have a look at it yourself, you don't have to wait till then, but by then it's going to be all finished, and we're looking forward to a lot of people enjoying the new and repainted labyrinth, and it's got a lot of additional features on it now. It's just mind-blowing what they've done, and actually the whole feeling of the whole community down there yesterday was amazing. So hats off to the labyrinth organization. Council, we have the consent agenda up front. We have the minutes of the public hearing held May 21st, 2025. We have the minutes of the council meeting held May 21st, 2025. And we have the approval of the council meeting agenda. Do I move or second a recommendation for that? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Gore.
Just one item on that, if I may.
Yes, if you do, go ahead, Councillor Grants. Any omissions or additions?
Thank you. On item 1C, approval of the meeting minutes, I intend to bring a motion during the notice of motion, during the motions from previous meetings to move into committee. So just giving advance notice on that. And I'd just like to note that the motion on 4A is substantively different than the motion that was deferred from the previous meeting. It's not a big deal, but I just want to note that procedurally.
Yes, I noted that as well. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. That is very true. You're to go into committee of the whole. You would like me to pencil you in for notices of motion, or before that time? That would be okay. We'll put you in before. We'll put you in under 3, just after 3 on the agenda. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So staff, to clarify, I think Councillor is asking for 4A to be discussed as a committee of the whole. Yes, thank you.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. That's probably a better way to put it.
Okay, that's great. That's perfect. All those in favor? That carries. Thanks, Council. Council, we have one delegation today. From Picard Enterprises regarding the road closure application on Despard Avenue West adjacent to 423 Alberni Highway. Presentation by Ann Green and S. Picard of Picard Enterprises Limited regarding the application to rezone the property at 423 Alberni Highway, as well as close and dispose of a portion of Despard Avenue West Adjacent 423 Alberni Highway. You can approach, is it Simone? Stefan, thank you. Okay, and Norm, was it? Nick, okay. You have 10 minutes for your presentation, gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming here today.
Thank you for having us. I'm just going to present myself. Stefan Picard. I'm a dentist. I own Downtown Dental Victoria and Capital Park Dental. But 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I started real estate, and I was living in Alberta for 20 years. And I built and I still own them, the urgent care in Cochrane and the fire hall and office medical building and strip mall. And in 2000, 2018, I moved to Victoria. And then in 2021, I bought a residence in Craigby and really enjoying the place. And I decided, okay, maybe it's time to look where I want to, I have young kids still, but I want to retire in Parksville. And I'm like, okay, well, it's time to look at the properties and what I can do here. So I bought a little property on Island Highway where Pizza is now. And then this piece of land came up the same year, and I'm like, I can see office building, medical building, or services to catering to the hospital workers or the seniors, anything related to that aspect. And I didn't really like the look of the dilapidated house when you come into Parksville or, when you're in that area. So I'm like, let's find something that'll work for you guys. So what I did is I met Blaine right away as soon as I bought the property and kind of got some guidance, and we started the process. So what I'm envisioning is like office building, commercial real estate for anything related to medical or services, coffee shop, that people, if you go and see someone at the hospital or you need to go and have a coffee or quick bite, or workers, they don't have to cross any street. They can go there and sit down, have a little meal. And then maybe residential on the top for any workers, physiotherapists or any tech, respiratory tech or anything, that accommodating you. So that's about what I had, I think. Yeah, that's it. Nice meeting you.
Hi, I'm Nick Green. I'm the technical consultant supporting Stefan here. Basically, a bit about myself. Although I live in Victoria, don't hold that against me. My family has been invested in this community for over 70 years. We've been a part of the Cheney Lane Apartments. My family's owned and operated that now for decades. And I'm basically here to talk about the difference between the two options. And here, let's see if we get this going. First of all, if you take a look at the photo from the top, it shows the access egress points as well as the proximity to the hospital. That means not only do we have great exposure coming down Alberni Highway, but in addition to that, we have very few neighbors that we can really upset with anything possibly related to this, because we don't have a lot of residential in the immediate vicinity. As you know, there's been a lot of density allocated to the other side of the road, what with the liquor store and the grocery store and the senior housing and all that. And so as a result, this is a neighborhood that is, rapidly getting better by the day. And we look forward to trying to help to support that. So going forward, this is the first thing that people see when they come off the exit of the highway. As Stefan mentioned, this is not the message you want to be sending about the booming and strength of Parksville. This is not the image you want to send. So, looking at, surrounding work that's already being done and access egress, we decided that after talking with council and after talking with the planners, that we had kind of two options. The first one was to build the best we could with the square footage we had. And under that one, we have it set up in such a way that we cap out at about a 4,000 square foot floor plan. The downside with that is that it's not super efficient as a building. It doesn't, it's large enough to make it work, but we can only bring in 12 residential units as a maximum because of the parking allocations. And even then the commercial is very tight. And so that's why we came up with the second concept of bringing in the road closure component. And while this will be a great, we'll be paying fair market value for the additional road, it also increases the efficiency of the building, makes it more scalable, and has more impact on the community as a whole. So that's why we've added that as an aspect of the proposal. We think that with this, we can almost double the capacity for parking, limiting the need for any easements or issues related or relaxations associated with trying to press for additional parking. And we think it's better for the community as a whole. So as you can see under the second design, we get a whole second row of parking here, which is material. It makes a big difference to the efficiency of the site. And that's why we're requesting that you guys support us in our initiative to upzone it. Related to the uses, Obviously, Stefan's touched on that, but I want you to imagine, late night, your kid's sick. He doesn't like hospital food. Where are you going to go right now to get food? Where are you going to go as a staff in the middle of your shift on your break? And we think that this is a perfect opportunity to synergize that. Plus, I understand that it's a high priority of the council to try and incentivize medical professionals to come here at this time. Well, you've got one sitting right here. He has a track record of launching some of the most successful dentist practices in Alberta. And what an opportunity to bring potential medical dental uses into this premises and attract more doctors and dentists to the community. That's, I think, my final point. Thank you.
Thanks very much, gentlemen, for your presentation, and you kind of segued right into where I was going with the need for medical and healthcare professionals in our area. It has been identified by Division of Family Practice here anyways, that they have a number of doctors that are willing to move to our area. However, they're lacking space. They're looking for space where they can. Your location is pretty close to the OHC, the Oceanside Health Center, which is does an amazing job for us, and we're very grateful to have that facility in our community. However, we have a shortage of healthcare professionals, and if this could be fit into your commercial area, it would be very much appreciated. And I know the Division of Family Practice would be very eager to discuss with you the possibilities, moving forward, concerning the length of construction and so forth going on. So that would be a very good conversation to have for yourselves anyways, just to touch bases with them, see what it is. It's a pretty good tenant to have, and it's kind of much needed in our community, and so it's going to be very busy. So that's always what a landlord needs to know. I do like the idea of putting residential up top. We're shortage of residential everywhere, and so we're pleased with that. You mentioned also the location. This was called at one time the Gateway Properties, Gateway coming into Parksville, and it's been developed slowly, bit by bit anyways, but this is in my mind, is a good example of what it should look like coming in compared to some other possible less desirable. So I'm pleased with that. I can say that right now. And for in our background report, we have the report from our Director of Planning anyways, Mr. Russell, regarding the possible purchase from the road allowance that's right next door, which would benefit your parking and your whole layout of your plan. So yeah, definitely, it's great. Thank you for that. I open it up now for council. Council, any questions for the delegation we have here today? Councillor Gore, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. My question is about the drive-through restaurant place that you're looking at. This seems to be quite contrary to what our OCP envisions. Would you be willing to change that, or are you really, this is like an integral component of your application?
It certainly would add value to the location. The reason why is because we do have, from this community, a lot of people driving up onto the highway every morning. What that means is they're going to other communities to work. They need a quick coffee. They need something to eat. It also helps with late night service to support the staff at the hospital, because quite often there is not enough staffing on a cost-effective basis, on an hourly basis, to keep the full retail location open. However, that doesn't mean that we're not happy to discuss that possibility. And we understand that it has potential conflict with the environmental goals. But I mean, you can just as easily do drop stall parking where, you pre-order and it gets brought out to your car. And so, I mean, there's a variety of options that can facilitate close to the same performance without a drive-through.
Yes, and to be clear, in our agenda anyways, like following your presentation here, one of the recommendations from our Director of Planning is the staff be directed to finalize the preparation of the zoning and development amendment bylaw with a term that prohibits drive-through use. So that's what council is going to be considering today. And if we hear that from our planning department, it's usually for very good reasons. And we defer always, well, most times anyways, to our planning department to provide recommendations that are solid for our community. Recognizing that the drive-throughs in this area can be problematic, even if a drop and pickup idea, because we have right next door to your premises is a senior care facility and also does palliative care out of that. And so to have constant headlights coming and going, recognize that the Oceanside Health Center is not a 24-hour emergency. It's only a limited, I believe they shut down at 9 p.m., is it? Yeah, 8 or 9 p.m. So they're not open at nighttime. So it's not an emergency. It's actually only primary care.
Yeah.
So that's to be considered as well. So that could,
Well, like you
could be a
said,
good starting point.
Yeah, like we talked prior to the meeting. I mean, I was not aware of it.
Right,
And
yes, I know.
collaboration with the city is, I mean, that's what I tried to do since the beginning. We're just trying to do something that'll be better than what you had in place and that'll serve everyone. So if there's no drive-through, there's no drive-through. It's good to be open to it in case, but
Right. That's
All
why I
good.
wanted to bring it up right up
Yeah,
front.
fair
Anyways, yeah. So that's
Fair enough.
great. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that. Councillor Gore, follow up?
Yes, thank you. As somebody who lives very close to a drive-through, I can tell you it's not a very pleasant experience to be living close to a 24 hours drive-through. My next question is about your design. Are you looking at some underground parking in the design? And second, will you be asking for any variances come close to the development stage?
As we understand it, we won't need variances with the land transaction.
no, there's no need for underground parking. As if we got the little piece of land, because there's enough parking stalls.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor? Councillor Grens, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to our delegation. Thank you for coming today. Great to meet you. This is the first time we met, even though you mentioned talking to us before. So thank you for coming with this presentation and thank you for bringing visual aids. I had first, I guess I'll continue the parking question. Of course, underground parking is very expensive, but there may be other ways to mitigate seeing the parking. Are there, I guess, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the flexibility around maybe where the parking would go. There's a parking lot, already a massive parking lot for the health center there, for the urgent care center. So maybe putting it on the other side, or how does the flexibility work for that? And would this land acquisition presumably would help that flexibility? That's my first question.
These are only preliminary renderings. Obviously, we would work with the planning department in far more detail to make sure that we optimize the design in every way we can going forward. Yes, underground parking is expensive, but in this particular case, it's also somewhat impractical just from an operational and scale standpoint. If you were to try and do that, yes, we would get more units, but we would also have a massive issue related to increasing the cost of construction, which directly affects the rents or ownership costs for people to get in. And I thought council's goal was to try and mitigate that.
Just another question, if I may. There is some additional retail space going in kitty corner to this property that's under construction right now. As you know, I'd love to hear some more about how you assess the market when looking to build something like this to know whether there's going to be additional demand for commercial space.
I was an analyst for Cushman & Wakefield for Western Canada, the senior analyst for 6 years. We do a combined analysis of both the rate of absorption as well as the vacancy rates. We also look at relative market rates, right? So ultimately, it comes down to the basic rent that's contributed to the landlord, not necessarily a demand problem. And so in addition to that, because we have the potential of bringing in the medical uses, there's a variety of industries that capitalize on that relationship that wouldn't normally be provided in conventional retail.
Okay, one more if I may.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you for indulging me. So that dovetails directly into my third question is, maybe you can elaborate. You've already started. I'd love to hear more about maybe the advantages you could potentially bring in terms of helping bring more medical practitioners to the area. Obviously, location is a great synergy there, being right next to the urgent care center. But are there any other ways that this facility could be better positioned for getting more primary care?
I'm gonna let Stefan take this one.
Well, I already have 20 years of bringing urgent care professional medical building to a small town of 8,000 people. Now it's 40,000 people, but I was pioneer in doing it. So, and like the connection I have into that field, medical professionals, I mean, in Victoria, like it's like I know even physician that lives in Victoria that have a second location here, but they're not opening anything here because there's no facilities for them and specialists as well. So, yeah, I mean, I can help as much as I can. I can put a gun to their, but I'll help as much as I can for sure. Yeah, that's the goal.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, you have the direct connection, so that may be an additional advantage.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Messi.
Thank you for that. Councillor Beal, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to our delegation. I'd like to thank you for your interest in Parksville and the area and this particular spot. I will admit that first of all, when I saw the request that it would be for that road allowance, I wasn't acutely aware of what that actually meant. So I was relieved to see that in that request, it does not affect that very nice berm along Despard, and there's some lovely trees planted there, and that it's beyond that area. So I'm quite intrigued. It looks like it could be something that would really add to that area, and to add some additional residential uses is always welcome. I always like to put out, though, that we have an acute need for some non-market housing, or at the very least, some affordable housing. So I don't know if when the time comes, if this rezoning goes ahead, if that's something that you can look at as part of this development plan.
One of the things we have been looking at is some of the CMHC financing programs related to affordable. We have to make sure that those programs are still active and economically viable at the time that we prepare for the DP. But as of right now, it's certainly on the table.
Thank you. Councillor Wood, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Through yourself. I'm kind of gonna, second Councillor Beal's comments on non-market or affordable housing as maybe just a portion of the number of units. If there's anything we can do through our MP for CMHC financing, let us know kind of on the political side. We might be able to expedite that for you. On the restaurant side of things, kind of the food catering facility, one thing we do here is when there's kind of retail built for food catering and there isn't the proper exhaust and kind of for full functionality in the kitchen. And that's something that we have heard in the past. Instead of just like a coffee shop, you can actually do a bit more of a restaurant. And so that's just another thing I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Depending on the end user,
Okay, yeah. I see a Councillor Martin.
depending on the end user, obviously we would account for things like an ecologizer if we needed to, or things like that to mitigate the smell. Not only that, but even if we did nothing, it would basically be venting out into the backside of a 3/4 empty parking lot. So it would have pretty minimal impact on surrounding neighbors, but we absolutely, depending on the use, could bring in ecologizers and appropriate ventilation to make sure that we protect from those smells and that nuisance.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, go ahead. Can't hear you right now, Councillor Martin. You may be on mute. Give me a test, 1, 2, 3. No, nothing there yet. How's your sign language? Yeah. Hi, I see you too. Have a nice day. There we go.
Muted it. Yeah. Can you
yes,
hear
and
me now?
Now you're good. Yes, go ahead.
I had an assistant in the room here. Thank you.
I know.
Pressed the same button, but his magic worked. Thank you very much. What I wanted to reiterate was, because I did check this out myself, was what Councillor Beal mentioned about something, if they can look at something, part of this structure being more affordable, because everything is really expensive, as we know. So when they're looking at the structure and building it, to consider that area very careful. So that was what I wanted to say. That was all. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Councilor Martin. Any other discussion or questions? For
May I
Oh,
may I
sorry.
add to that?
Sorry.
One of the interesting things about this initial design, which by no means is the final design, but one of the interesting things about this initial design is with the additional land, you get the fairly large floor plan units. And on a cost per square foot and a cost per bedroom basis, it drives down the average cost, which allows us to provide it more affordably than conventional construction. You'd have more 2 and 3 bedrooms based on the existing design. Again, we are not committed to this design yet, but this is our plan, and it would actually drive down the per square foot cost of housing materially relative to the standard, 450 to 550 square foot apartments that they're pumping out today, where it's half kitchen and half bathroom. It just on a per square foot basis, the cost of plumbing, the cost of electrical, all that stuff drives it up. I actually am an advisor for several municipalities on affordable housing and bringing an economically viable affordable housing. I've done it for Squamish, for the city of Victoria, as well as the city of Saanich on several occasions. And specifically what I do is I correlate the design and the smart design to drive down the construction cost so that a developer or a builder has the ability to build economically and help with that affordability.
And thank you for that. And 2 and 3 bedrooms is really preferred right at this particular point, and especially your location where you are, because a lot of the employees at the OHC are young families. And to have a place to live, a 3-bedroom place that can accommodate their family would be a real advantage for them. And so we want to keep them in our community, and having suitable housing for their families is paramount to our plan. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. I understand we're just conceptual right now, but we're just kind of planting seeds now. That's all we're doing. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm going to back you up on your need for, family-oriented layouts and designs. So there's enough space. Lowering the cost of housing for the developer is great. How does that, if they're market rental or market purchase, how does that savings in construction, how is that reflected in the market rental or market purchase?
I actually did an entire course on this for the city of Victoria, and I'd be happy to do it for you guys at some point in time if you'd like. Specifically, the way that multifamily works on a cash flow basis is a metric called net operating income, or NOI. Most councils aren't familiar with this concept. It's an economic concept. And basically, it's the net cash flow from a rental building that feeds down to allow for debt service. So it's like the EBITDA for a business. And what it does is by optimizing that up or down, it has to debt service the cost of construction of the initial construction. So by designing the building well and driving down the cost per square foot of the design as economically as you can afford to take a lower NOI to meet the debt service requirements. And that allows for parties to take a lower gross rent or a lower net exit value and still be economically viable.
I just want to mention, I'm not a land developer. I'm not trying to flip or making a huge profit. Like even me and the wife, we were talking this weekend and we're like, we have a 3 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old. And we wanted to call the place the Legacy Corner because it's something we want to be part of. Like we want to be part of the community and we want to have something that we can give to the kids one day and that they're proud of. It's not like a quick turnaround and making money and leaving. Like I'm keeping everything that I have. And I build it to be helpful. So that's the only thing I can say. Okay, thank you.
And I'm the perfect example of that, 3rd generation inheriting that property at Cheney Lane.
Thank you for that. Follow up. Go ahead, Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. And so it sounds like the savings in your debt servicing can be reflected in the market rental rate. It'll be kind of a little bit lower than market rental rate is what you're saying. if I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, as long as I'm not losing my shirt at the end of the day, that's, I want just a little income for the family, but I'm not trying to make huge profit here.
Any further questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to the delegation. And I'd just like to make it clear, as much as I mentioned the importance for our community to have additional non-market or affordable housing, a mixed model is always, in my mind, the best based on everything I've seen. So, and I see some lovely examples, even here, of buildings that have that mix of that lower end to full market, maybe again at the lower level. But so whatever you can do will be appreciated.
Thank you. Any other further comments? Seeing none, gentlemen, thank you for your presentation. Yeah, thanks for coming in. Welcome to Parksville. Under reports, we have the first on the agenda is from the Director of Community Planning and Building, consideration of permanent closure and disposal of a portion of Despard Avenue West adjacent to 423 Alberni Highway for the application for a road closure and disposal. So may I have a mover second for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Wood. Any discussion? Councillor Gar, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Is this the time to ask questions to Mr. Russell about the road closure, perhaps?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Mr. Russell, I'm going to go back in time a little bit and to the first time about 5 years ago when this similar application came for the road closure and it was denied by the council at the time. Can you refresh my memory why that was done and what was the stated purpose by the council, if you remember, please?
If I may, Mayor, through to Councillor Gore, to get into the decision maker's mind, I'm good at planning, but I'm not that good. So I would say that those decision makers had their own reasons. It's hard to know whether it was strictly the road closure itself, whether it was related to there was an associated rezoning application at the time, but I would hazard a guess what was in the individual councillors' minds. There was certainly some discussion about public art space, or I would say that my recollection is some like, the park bench that was there. I should point out that this is a request for about 1/3 of that area. So it's kind of the section that's in the brambles, not the nicely manicured section. Our parks department is known for doing a fantastic job of manicuring and keeping things looking nice. And the area that's being sought isn't that part.
Yes. Do you want to talk to her or not? No. Okay. And excellent reply, Mr. Russell. You certainly don't want to get into the heads of the decision makers. That's a very dark place. Thank you for that. Councillor Gore, you're satisfied with that reply? Yeah. Are you good or a follow-up? You're okay? Thank you. Councillor Grants, do you have your hand up? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Councillor Grants.
Thank you. Maybe just speaking a little bit to the motion through you to council.
Sorry.
Speaking through you to council on the motion.
Yes.
Yeah. So I did watch the discussion from the previous council on this. At the time, the proposal there was nothing proposed really on this property. So it's pretty hard to approve something that you don't really know what you're approving. It's just selling the land. And I came into this meeting of the same opinion that just disposing the land without seeing some idea for that land and something that's being proposed, I wouldn't really want to support that. But I am persuadable on this one because not only do we see a vision for this now, and this would enhance this intersection or this corner of that intersection potentially. I would. And it's not as much of that property because I hate to lose some of that green space that there is there. It's small, but it's a nice little spot there that for people walking along Despard or coming from the elementary school, it's a nice place to just rest and get some shade from a tree. And also if you want to, grab a coffee, it's a nice place to do that. And certainly having a little bit more green space in this area, which doesn't have what it used to in terms of green space. It'd be nice to retain that. But the fact that that would remain in place in large part, while still allowing for the site to achieve some other purposes, namely more healthcare services, that would be a good sell for me, I think.
Great. And that's your comment on the appreciation for the visuals on the conceptual. And I get that because I go back to the time when on Despard, there was no sidewalk from Alberni Highway all the way to Craig. And that was terrible for the kids, especially coming back and forth to school. And now we have a sidewalk. Thank you to the developers. Anyways, we have that, so we have safe egress back and forth down there. So I too am looking forward to a proposal such as this as compared to the last one, which reasons remain in my dark, foggy head. So that's perfect. Councillor Wood, did you have your hand up again? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just on the comment of parking, I'm under the impression that Island Health is beside themselves for how tight parking is at urgent care. And I just wanted to make that note, wherever this goes, that they are maxed out in that parking lot often, as we take an overflow from NRGH as Nanaimo people come north to get some care, urgent care. It's just something to keep in mind. Thanks.
Yes, and Councillor Wood, I can assure you that that fact was made to Island Health, that property is once again vacant again and could possibly be very good overflow parking. That was made officially to them, and there was no uptake on that at this particular time or at that particular time. And anyway, so you can lead a horse to water. However, thank you. Councillor Gore, go ahead.
Thank you. And again, to our Director of Planning, in the report, I did not really see the land lift value with this rezoning. Do you have any number? Do you remember?
If I may, sorry, with respect to the road closure?
No, just the whole property rezoning. What is the land lift value?
That'll be in the follow-up report. We had some struggles finding equivalent properties. It's sort of a somewhat unique site. So we will be providing that information in the follow-up report. But there is, as far as the road closure goes, which I believe is the current item, there is in the financial implications section, there is information.
Right. Thank you. Anything further? All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Okay. That's all we did. So the next report on the agenda is also from the Director of Community Planning. Sorry.
I'm not sure that we actually, I think we just received this and okay, so now are we going to now consider the options that are there?
We're going
but still concerning the road closure?
Yeah, we're going to consider 3 and I can pull them out separately if you like. Are you suggesting that?
Oh, okay, or perhaps we have a motion.
Or there's actually 4 of them, but it's under section 3.
I think there's just 3 regarding
That's
the
on the next page.
road closure. That's on page 3 of 10.
Yeah,
Is that correct? Oh. I believe our CAO is trying to get us on
My
track.
speaking notes, to be clear, so the last one we just passed was just to receive the report. So that is done.
If I
On the
may-
next one, we have the introduction of the rezoning and development bylaw amendment, including 1, 2, 3, and 4 different suggestions.
I was hoping that we might be able to move along with the request for the road closure, that we could forward that application if that's appropriate. That would be, for instance, I could move option 1, that council direct staff to commence the statutory process for road closure and disposition of a portion of the Despard Avenue West Road right of way.
I see where you're going now. Okay,
yeah.
Yes.
If
Because it doesn't
CAO,
come up
our
in here.
CAO
CEO
help
Taylor,
us out
yes,
here.
go ahead.
Well, if you don't need me, that is what I was basically going to just flag, is that we could get direction from council on a yay or nay, receive for information, and then, as Councillor Beal has just done, move an option.
Right off the floor, that would be a good way to move things along. Yeah, thanks. I thought we were going to do it in here, but you got a better spot. Okay, so let's roll back a little bit. We just received that report for information. Is there any motions to follow for that?
I believe I just read out the motion.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Fraz. Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Gore, clarification, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So since, pardon me. Thank you. This is through the chair to the staff. So the current value of this land disposition sits at about 333,000 of what is zoned now. But since this will be part of the rezoning, I'm guessing this will also be rezoned to a CD zone. So why are we not seeking a value of the land to which it will be rezoned to and used by the applicant to build 8 additional units?
Director of
If
Planning.
I may,
Mr. Russell, please.
Mayor, through to Councillor Gore. So, I mean, road closures are typically based on the city would have been in some ways you could argue the city was gifted that land at some point when the road was extracted from the adjacent property. So typically for road closures, we look at the value of the assessed value of the land. If council doesn't want to use the assessed value of the land, council is certainly more than welcome to provide other direction on how it wishes to ascertain the value of that road closure. But typically, we have used the assessed value. In our experience, a lot of the appraisals are actually based on the OCP designation of the land and not the current zoning. They sort of seem to be factoring that in, but there are other approaches, and certainly as the report has been prepared, how we typically prepare these. But if council wants them done a different way, we're certainly open to look into those possibilities.
Councillor Gore.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I'll move to have the value set, the disposition value set at the rezoned application.
We have a motion on the
Sorry.
floor.
Yeah, we're talking to the motion on the floor. Okay. Any other questions on the motion on the floor? Comments? All those in favor? Was that? Yes, to dispose the land. Thank you. Did Councillor Martin, was your hand up? Okay, in affirmative. Thank you. That carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
That carries.
Yes, thank you for the procedural correction there. So I'll make a motion that the value of this land be set at the CD zone, that this whole property will be rezoned to. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
CEO
If I
Kaler,
may
go
get
ahead.
clarification, so staff were assuming that the motion passed by council just now was option 1, which has 7 components from page 18 in the agenda, and that it does include the purchase price suggested by staff. If council, can we just maybe confirm that that's what council thought they were voting on? Because that's what we thought you were voting on. Because that's part of the motion that
was part of
Councillor Beal alluded to. So there are 7, Councillor Beal mentioned option 1, which staff has a draft motion with 7 items. And so if council did not intend for those items to be voted on, I think we need some clarification of what the motion was intended to include.
I'm going to go back to the mover of the motion, Councillor Beal. Did it include the purchase price?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I had read this report previously, and I have no objection to this at all. So
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So it was.
so the motion is as stands.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Councillor Fraz, go ahead.
Just want to make a point that I don't have that on my agenda here, and the internet's not working, so I didn't have those 7 points. They weren't read out, so I didn't understand that the purchase price was being included in that. So as a seconder, I would remove my second in the motion if that was if that point was being included, but they should have all 7 points should have been read in the motion then.
If I may, Mayor.
Okay, one at a time. Hold on. The CAO Kaler, on the page, not on my speaking notes, on the page exactly what was that? What was that page?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on page 18.
Sorry, CAO Kaler, answer please.
Page 18 of the online agenda. And on the agenda, it's listed as page 4 of 10 of the current staff report.
Yes.
And it starts at the top of the page saying this, a bullet saying council resolution for consideration of adoption 1.
Yes.
And then there are 7 points drafted in the motion suggested by staff, which number 6 includes the purchase price. And so I think what staff intended or thought that Councillor Beale was moving those components of option 1. But if that's not the case, we would need clarification on what the motion actually did include.
Yes. Okay, so moving back again, if we can, Councillor Beale, were you indeed moving exactly as we just said, 1 through 7?
If I may, staff are just going to pull it up too, just for the.
Yeah, that's
ease of-
great if you can. Thank you. I was going to ask if we have a hard copy for, the internet's not working right now. Is there a hard copy spare anyways that we can just give to Councillor Fraz? Yeah.
As I stated previously, I have read this report actually a few times, and it is online here, and I'm satisfied with what staff has put forward as the various points for option 1, and that is what I moved.
Thank you. Okay, and we're just making sure that the Councillor Fraz, who did not have that information in front of him, is aware of it. I know the Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. Just so that people who are watching are aware, the agendas that we get at our desk are just the very brief agenda parts, and they're not a full agenda that is ever printed out. And the full agenda is sent out, and it was sent out on, I believe, May 29th for our email for council to read, which does include this part of the report.
Yes, you are absolutely correct. Okay, so Councillor Fraz, do you have the information you needed now? Would you like a reconsideration by point of that? Because now that you have everything there.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Gore, go ahead.
Thank you. So question through to staff. As you know, like I was asking about the price, so perhaps the best thing would have been an amendment looking back. So I think just for the benefit of all council members, it would be best for us to rescind the motion and consider it again so we can have fulsome discussion on the price of disposition of this city-owned land. Thank you.
That's what we're going. Yes, Councillor or CAO Kaler.
If I may, I believe the seconder is also withdrawing their
Yes.
seconding. So that would be an appropriate way essentially just to cancel that out. And then whoever wishes to make a motion can be clear on what exactly the components of it are. And that way they can get a seconder based on the full motion.
Okay, well, what I'll do is I'll go back to the original mover of that and ask if they want to continue on with that and look for a different seconder. Yes.
If there's no seconder, then I
There-
guess there's
there
no
will be.
seconder. There will be. Are you seconding?
I am.
Okay, thank you. So if somebody wants to move an amendment, then we can vote on the amendment.
That's
But at
correct.
this point, we have a motion
That-
and a seconder. Thank you.
That is correct. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, and now if there's an amendment to, that's when we'd hear this now. Go ahead, Councillor Gore.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. Yeah, I'll amend the 0.6 of this option 1 that that a value to be determined after the rezoning of the parcel be considered whatever the amount is, because I would like the new amount to reflect the new zone, which in my opinion will be a higher price for this land.
If I may just provide some
Go ahead.
clarification.
Yes.
We would need to have firmer direction on that because they're sequential. So the zoning is not going to proceed if they don't have that portion of land because they'll have to completely change their proposal without it. So I think we need some definitive amount that would allow the applicant to move forward with the rezoning. And you can't predict what the assessed value would be. It could be 8 years from now or 2 years from now. So I think we would request from council a more definitive amount to start with that.
Yeah, and in consideration of the fact that the motion is on the floor, it actually has a dollar amount in there. We voted that. We'll vote on it again in a minute. But the thing is that to say now we got to go back and look for what a uplift value could be, it's unfair not only to the proponent, it's unfair to planning because they've done all this work. But regardless, Director of Planning, Mr. Russell, go ahead, sir.
If I may, Mayor, through yourself and council. So there's a couple things. So the rezoning, the bylaw can be prepared with either decision. And in fact, it's been worded as such. So the zoning bylaw could technically be completed today without the road closure, and it's been worded in such a way that so they're not entirely, they don't have to entirely follow the exact lockstep approach. That being said, the purpose of having a value presented now is twofold. One is we don't know whether the zoning will be successful or not, and it's really a separate decision. So when it comes to the rezoning aspect, you know, there's amenities that are part of that rezoning that council will need to weigh whether those community amenity contributions that form part of the rezoning are sufficient as part of that rezoning application, if that makes sense. So that's why the other reason why this value is presented right now is so that the person that's interested in that property has a rough idea of approximately what the city's expectation is on that cost, so they know whether or not to pursue it. And whether or not we go through the process, because we do have to involve multiple utilities and et cetera. So.
Right, I have Councillor Wood, and then I have Councillor Grants.
Thank you, Mayor. It's not often that we have someone who wants to build housing and they mention CMHC. Since none of us are developers at the table, when a developer comes and is going to build housing and they mention that they are interested in maybe a unit or 2 units or 3 units or whatever it might end up being, and they mention CMHC, which is, kind of a little bit of magic language for the federal government helping. We can make it harder or we can make it easier on their margins to get done what we want to get done. And I think if we want to make the land more expensive for them, then that makes it harder for them. And I think that it seems like traditionally this is the way that staff is recommending that we go with the value. And so I would just ask council to consider that. Thanks.
And thank you for that. And it plays directly to the affordability of maybe having below market housing. The attempt here is to try and extract a higher cost out of this property for the developer is going to pay. So therefore, that's going to severely limit the amount of affordability that he can build into this, seeking the lower, which we already had in the discussion when the delegation presented. So this is going in the exact opposite direction of achieving that. And I'm not sure what the purpose is other than a few more shekels in the hands of the city of Parksville. I'm not sure what the purpose, but anyways, Councillor Grants is next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think the next item is to advance the rezoning of this property and offer an opportunity for the public to engage on this. Personally, I'd love it if the public could also speak a little bit to the sale of this land as well as part of this discussion. I wonder if it might make sense to defer this motion until after we've moved past the public engagement piece on that, and if we can maybe approve sort of in principle the sale of the land. But I fully recognize the concerns around the price of the land, all that sort of thing. I will note that if the idea of deferral doesn't make sense, that the land value in 2020 was pegged at 179,730. And that, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, maybe the Director of Planning will correct me, is a fraction of the size of the property that we're talking about right now.
If I may,
Yes, go ahead.
Mayor Brian, through to Councillor Grant. So the value is calculated off of the land value of the adjacent property.
And so that's a smaller amount than was previously considered by this council, it's a smaller piece of property. So the value is, and the value's gone up quite a bit, it looks like. So, so in terms of, I'm okay. I'm okay with this now, but I would love to see the whole thing be considered and brought before the public. If council would be on that train as well.
The only comment I'll make on that, thanks, Councillor Grant. The only comment I'll make on that is that we're kind of on a program here where we're trying to get some housing and more housing. We all got the letter from the Minister of Housing last week, Mr. Callan, advising that we are now on the naughty list, so to speak, but we have to provide more housing. And that's what we're doing here. And therefore, in the background information, therefore, since the proponent is proposing housing, we cannot have a public hearing. Cannot. So I know you're suggesting that the more public consultation, but the ministry is telling us these developers are actually proposing it. So the housing. So I can't see, I'm sorry, I just can't see more public comment on this, like delaying a project even further type of thing, because recognize that I would suggest, have you bought this property? Have you bought this property? Yeah, so they're the owners of the property. So they're paying interest on this every day that we delay. And if we say we have to go back for public consultation to say if they don't want us to sell the city property adjacent to it, I think that is an unnecessary delay that's unfair to the potential tenants as well as the owner of the property itself.
Yeah, just to clarify, I'm not asking for a public hearing, which I understand, but that the next motion will be asking for an opportunity for hosting an open house.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's not really to do with the buying or selling of the property.
It would have to do with the overall vision for the property,
Yes,
and the vision
yes.
will change depending on how big the property is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's my only thought.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I have a few comments to make. One, at present, the city does not have a specific plan for that slice of land that is where the road allowance goes through and the ditch and beside there. So we don't have a specific plan for that. It isn't something that jumps out as being part of our strategic plan to look at that spot. In which case, the only other possible interest parties would be whoever owns that property right next to it. And we have these folks right in front of us who do own that. I would hate to see I would hate to delay that part of it, given that. And then beyond that, in terms of adjusting the price, I have, and I know that everybody here does have great respect for our staff. And we hear time and time again about how wonderful our planning department is and how helpful and how knowledgeable. And I totally support that. And I appreciate the detail that's gone into this report and a recommendation that I can only believe is totally fair. So I'm not going to second guess that amount. Finally, as both Councillor Wood alluded to and also Mr. Russell, there are possibilities going forward when these developers start to work on refine a plan that will have a public, it's not a public hearing, but open house, etc. They've certainly heard from us our sincere interest in getting some low market or affordable or some element. We have some incentives with the city. Those are things that I want to hang on to, or some other amenities that perhaps can go towards creating something that is of great value for our community. And I'm happy to accept what our planning department is saying is a fair price. I don't really want to drive up the price for this when there may be some other benefits that can come down the road that work for everyone. So that's my feeling.
Thank you, Councillor Beal. And I want to recognize that we had a proposed amended motion. Are we discussing the proposal? Well, that was never seconded. Okay, thank you. To the motion on the floor, Councillor
Yeah,
Praz,
thank
go
you.
ahead, sir.
Just want to say to council, thank you for taking this motion again so I can fully understand all the components that are included in it. I don't think my position has changed on it, though. I think I'll still support it as I originally did with a full understanding of what it's including now.
Thank you, Councillor Praz. Okay. So do you still want to try and propose an amendment, Councillor Gore? Go ahead.
Thank you. I heard council talk about, the land value and everything and what's being proposed by the staff. I appreciate that, all the background. And driving up the prices and everything. I get that. But 7 people here can dispose of public land with a value we deem as reasonable. So this is the authority we have. So I want to make sure the people of Parksville, they are getting the best deal if they're selling off the land that belongs to the public. If the council believes what's being proposed is appropriate, which is what I'm hearing, and there's talk about some below market housing. So I wonder, a question to staff, would this be the time to have like a covenant on this development that 15%, which would be like 3 units, be below market as part of this rezoning? Or would it come down? I'm guessing it would be at this time, rather than later.
Yeah, go on.
If
I'll let Kiva
Let me
go.
go first. I'm just gonna, I can defer to the director planning on something technical after, but I do want to just caution council that we don't have policy that speaks to that. And so previous developers that have come here last week, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, have not had that requirement put on them. And so my caution would be on a process item that when we're reviewing things for rezoning, we do have established policy in the official community plan, in other policies around affordable housing. We also have bylaws that on DCC waivers and things like that, that I would be concerned about that type of thing coming in without policy that would apply across the board to all people equally. And I think we've had some conversations with counselors over the years on that, because we really need to be fair in our assessment of individual applications, but treat everybody the same. And so that would be my caution at this point. It certainly is open to negotiation, and council can have that negotiation throughout the rezoning process, but a sort of a sweeping thing across the board like that does concern me from a due process perspective.
Okay, Mr. Russell, do you want to add anything to that?
If I may, Mayor and Council, just to add a little bit, this decision is really strictly the road closure. When it comes to the agenda item of the rezoning, there'll be an opportunity to discuss the merits of that proposal. And certainly a councillor or councillors, if they have an aspect of the proposal that they think needs to be changed or altered, there's certainly an opportunity to speak to that. The proponent then has an opportunity to consider that, and the application will be coming back to council at a future moment in time. But it's really when that agenda item comes forward, council has the opportunity to look at what is being proposed and provide comment on it accordingly as individual council members see fit.
Right. Yes, that's what I thank you for that, Mr. Russell. So there's no mention about the use in the motion that's on the floor. So all those in favor? It carries unanimous. Thank you. The next report on the agenda, Director of Community Planning and Building Zoning Amendment Bylaw at 423 Alberni Highway. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendations of all 4? Moved by Councillor Franz, seconded by Councillor Beal. Any discussion? I got to look back on.
Maybe while Councillor Beal thinks, I'll make comment.
Councillor Gore wanted to make sure which ones we're talking about.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so. Council. P 1 to 4. Just make sure it's the same on my speaking notes. That's all I'm looking at here. Starts with that, the report from Director of Community Planning. Number 1.
Yeah, that the
Yes.
report from the community planning for May 27th is received, that the owners provide the open house for the notice and to finalize the preparation for the zoning.
Are you moving all 4?
Moving all 4.
You're doing a good job. Why don't you read out the other 3?
Those are summarization of all 4 there.
Yeah,
Do you want me to
okay.
read them all? You can read them verbatim if you want.
Let's be clear. Sure.
So
Thank
that
you,
the report from
Councillor
the
Price.
Director of Community Planning and Building dated May 27th, 2025, entitled Application for Zoning Development Bylaw Amendment 423 Alberni Highway to facilitate a mixed-use development, file 3,360 PZN 049 be received. Number 2 is that the owners of 423 Alberni Highway and their agent are provide an opportunity for public engagement, such as the hosting of a public open house, and provide comments received at the Community Planning and Building Department for subsequent presentation to council prior to introduction of consideration of first reading of the zoning and development amendment bylaw. Number 3, that the owners of 423 Alberni Highway and their agent are to install notice signs on the subject property at their expense, minimum of 10 days prior to the public engagement, undertaking or the introduction of consideration of first reading of the zoning and development amendment bylaw. And number 4 is that staff be directed to finalize the preparation of the zoning and development amendment bylaw with a term that prohibits drive-through use.
Thank you, Councillor Fraz. Save my voice. Thank you. That has been moved and seconded. Councillor Fraz, you have first option to speak on it if you wish. None? Thank you. Comment, Councillor Beal, go ahead.
Thank you. I would just like to say that I would like to support this this motion, and I appreciate the recommendation that prohibits drive-through use. I think that's very wise in this particular location.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. All those in favor? Oh, sorry. If you could, out of the peace sign or yeah, I know, yeah, little or like a, no, when Councillor Wood wants to adjourn, you know that motion? That.
Oh, I should do that one.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
I'll see you for sure. Councillor Grant, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to touch on some of the comments that Councillor Gore made. At the end of the day, and I think this is more a comment maybe for the proponent and the public, is that for us to dispose of this property, I do want the public to see that there's a benefit that comes from that, that we've disposed of this property, that will see a benefit to the community, even if it's not some kind of covenant on the property or some, but at the end of the day, that the public will say, we gave up this piece of our property so that we could see a benefit. And I want that to be clear. And thank you for Councillor Gore for raising that.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that, say moving forward, a policy that speaks to a percentage of the housing being non-market is not a bad policy, but it just has to be a separate policy and not a one-off one. So if there is a motion or resolution in council's future that speaks to that, we would certainly entertain that. But it's the difference between doing something one-off and doing something as a broader policy of the entire city. Thank you.
Correct. Sorry. Yes. Yes. To the motion that's on the floor.
Yes, thank you. I do want to get some clarification. I know we spoke about some below market housing and percentage, and you mentioned will be opportunity perhaps. So where does that opportunity would come, and because I was hoping before public input is the time to have, let's say, a percentage of this will be, let's say, below market housing. To me, that would be an important piece to support this, considering the disposition price. Otherwise, I could not. Sorry.
Okay, on the motion on the floor, I think we've heard all the new information that we need. All those in favor? Okay. Sylvia's gonna, I think Sylvia's voting already. You were talking about the housing, the affordable housing, but that's not anything to do with this motion that's on the floor. Once again, stick to the motion on the floor. Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? Councillor Gore opposes. Thank you, Councillor. That carries. The next report on the agenda is from the Director of Community Planning and Building regarding a liquor primary new outdoor patio application at the Parksville Curling Club at 193 Island Highway East to consider proceeding with notice to facilitate a new outdoor patio with liquor service. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Gore, seconded by Councillor Beal. Do you moved it, Councillor Gore? Do you wish to speak to it? Okay. Any other comments regarding this application? All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Now, we have one motion from the May 21st meeting. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. We have one motion from the May 21st meeting from Councillor Gore, submission of resolution to UBCM establishing local watershed boards in British Columbia, as presented by Councillor Grenz is making a suggestion to move to Councillor Committee of the Whole. Go ahead, Councillor Grenz.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we move to Committee of the Whole to discuss this resolution, just to allow more free-flowing discussion on the item.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Wood. And Councillor Grenz, your motion? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Moving to Committee of the Whole?
So we,
Go ahead, Councillor Gore to CAO Kaler.
Yes, thank you. I was going to call you Councillor Kaler, but thank you, CAO. My question is, once we go into the Committee of the Whole and this is discussed, and I hope it passes, then it will goes back to the open meeting and it's adopted because of the timeline we're looking at. We don't have to wait for the next council meeting. Okay, thank you.
so if I may, with the Committee of the Whole motion, council can move into committee at any time, but it does have to be moved, seconded and voted on. And then you can have a more free-flowing conversation and then make recommendations back to council for consideration immediately after.
Right. Thank you. And on the consideration to move to a Committee of the Whole, all those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Now we are in Committee of the Whole. Councillor Grenz, would you like to start?
I think it's, thank you. And thank you for council for allowing us to move into Committee of the Whole. I just felt like it would be a better chance to kind of discuss this a little more thoroughly because there are quite a few aspects to it. And clarification I'd love to get from Councillor Gore. I assume that this time it would be appropriate for Councillor Gore to bring the motion and then to get that onto the floor.
I think that'd be a good idea. And if you could read it out again, Councillor Gore, because I noticed it changed from the last time. So,
I did. Yes, thank you, Mayor. And thank you for council for considering it again and with some changes to it. The recommendation is that Council of the City of Parksville endorse the following resolution for submission to the Union of BC Municipalities, UBCM, for consideration at the 2025 Annual UBCM Convention. Whereas BC communities are facing increasing water insecurity due to multi-year droughts, floods, wildfires, and rising water demand for housing, agriculture, and economic development. And whereas BC government has committed to strengthening collaborative local processes around water management at the watershed level and to identify clear actions to improve local governance through the Cooperation and Responsible Government Accord. Therefore, be it resolved that UBCM call on the province of British Columbia to establish a framework for local watershed governance boards with necessary funding that will enable interested local governments in collaboration with First Nations to work collaboratively with governments and other entities involved in local watershed management to improve watershed governance, increase community resilience, and ensure sustainable, equitable water management for current and future generations. Look for a seconder, please.
Thank you. Second for discussion. Yes. Yes, go ahead. So Councillor Wood,
Or unless,
sorry, Councillor Grant?
no, it's okay. Councillor Gore moved it and then Councillor Gore Wood
Yes.
seconded. So if Councillor Gore, I don't know if you had any additional comment or anything.
Councillor Gore, any comment first?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think there's a lot of background that I already provided to the council, why we need watershed boards. I think there was a PDF that were attached, had a lot of information in it. But if you folks want, I can repeat it for you, but I don't think, I think you're fully aware where the case stands for needing watershed boards. And if there's any questions, and I thank Councillor Grants for moving it into the committee of the whole, so we can have fulsome discussion. Any misunderstandings or any misconceptions or any questions can be answered more in a more informal way rather than, the open meeting style. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wood?
Thank you. And it's a great idea, Chair, that we have a committee of the whole. So I want to thank Councillor Grenz and I want to thank Councillor Gore for bringing this forward. I don't usually write out my comments because I kind of like to, speak as sincerely as possible, kind of off the cuff, but this is an important one. And so I have a few written ones if the council will kind of entertain me. As we know, Parksville taxpayers already help fund a regionally respected drinking water and watershed protection technical advisory committee through the regional district of Nanaimo. This group brings together hydrologists, engineers, biologists, local government staff, and First Nations representatives to provide expert science-based guidance on watershed health and drinking water supply. Of course, the two responsibilities we all share, ensuring a reliable drinking water supply and maintaining base flows in the Englishman River, are both critical to long-term sustainability. But if and when there are concerns, the more expedient and effective process would be for a councillor to appear as a delegation to the Technical Advisory Committee, bringing forward verifiable information with the intent to maximize the expertise taxpayers are already paying for. It's also worth noting that the province of BC's current legislative and funding priorities are heavily focused on housing, underscored by Parksville's recent addition to the Housing Supply Act list of municipalities with accelerated housing targets. In that context, creating new water governance bodies without first utilizing the technical resources we already fund seems to misalign with where the province is currently placing its attention and resources. Having spent a year as an elected director on the Union of BC Municipalities Board, I can say with some confidence that a resolution like this, bypassing existing regional structures and misaligned with current provincial priorities, would likely be placed in what's known as the no recommendation block. As we know, at the Union of BC Municipalities Convention, this means that the board does not support the resolution for endorsement. It also means that it may not be prioritized for debate during the convention and, in some cases, may be grouped among lower profile or less urgent resolutions. That puts the city in the awkward position of appearing out of step with both the province and the broader local government community. We've also heard loud and clear from our local ratepayers association that adding new layers of governance, especially those duplicating services and expertise that we're already paying for, should be approached with caution and fiscal responsibility. Finally, it's important to recognize that the Union of BC Municipalities is already on record opposing provincial legislation like Bill 15, which removes both local government and First Nations say in environmental and infrastructure decisions. As we know, the province is currently seeking to fast-track infrastructure by streamlining or bypassing traditional, local, and Indigenous consultation. So while this resolution claims to support collaborative governance, it risks misreading the moment. In that light, we should be extra careful not to dilute or duplicate the regional collaboration we already have. If we can resolve some of these inconsistencies and go through our technical advisory committee and the broader drinking water and watershed protection program, which Parksville taxpayers already fund, for feedback first, I'd gladly support a revised resolution after that. But for now, it's our responsibility to do the legwork before putting Parksville's name behind something that may not align with what's happening on the ground or in the provincial legislature. Thanks for listening to that. Thanks.
Thank you. And Councillor Grens, you're next. First time speaker.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wood. I didn't write anything down, but I do have, I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and there's been a lot of emails that have come in, or, you know, quite a few emails that have come in from the local community on this. And so first off, watersheds are utterly critical to us as humans and all of our non-human friends that we share this land with. And so everything we can do to protect infrastructure or the watersheds is utterly critical. And I know that the province has done a lot on that already. But my concern is the way that this particular resolution has landed in our community. I am concerned, and I hope that Councillor Gore can maybe address this concern. I'm concerned that the public may be misled as to what this resolution can accomplish. The emails I've received are conflating what people in the community perceive as too much housing being built in our community with this particular resolution. And when I've done my research and I did speak to this a bit in the last meeting on the different organizations that are involved in watershed protection, but I've found a number of things in addition to what I already knew, and also speaking to my wife who works in the area. And a couple examples pop up. One is the regional district's DWWP is actually given as a case study on the Watersheds BC website, which tells me that what we are already doing in our region is above and beyond and is being held out as an example. So on that, I don't know that it makes sense for us to bring forward a resolution that asking the provincial government to do something that we don't need them to ask us to do. We're already doing it. Then on the on the factor of the public. The emails we're getting that speak to watershed protection and stopping development, I would really like the councillor to clarify whether this can do that, and whether the emails that we're getting that seem to believe that a watershed board would have any role in affecting city planning and the amount of housing being built. Yeah, I'd just love to get some clarification on that from Councillor Gore for the sake of the public.
And thank you. And we're for first-time speakers now. Councillor Beale? No, I don't want to do the question. Councillor Gore.
Councillor Martin also isn't.
Yeah, Councillor Gore will write down the questions and he'll get a chance and on the second time around to answer. First, Councillor Beale first.
As a total aside, I think when people come to present, it would be helpful to let them know that these devices actually move and they don't have to slide forward and they're like this and we can barely hear them, but I'm fairly short. So I also, as did Councillor Wood, I actually wrote down some thoughts and spent a fair bit of time thinking about this and also trying to look into this. So, and I also appreciate what Councillor Grenz was saying in that letters that we have received seem to misunderstand what this motion is actually saying. At least it's I understand the motion. So the motion, as I understand it, is calling for the creation of a framework which could then be used by local governments to form a watershed governance board. And such a framework could not, should not, would not be a one-size-fits-all or a cookie-cutter model, because the watersheds in the municipalities and the activities within them could vary greatly from one to the next. But nonetheless, a framework for establishing such a board should be of assistance when it's needed, if it's needed, and it should provide for greater efficiency. I see it as not unlike an emergency planning tool. We don't wait until there is an emergency to make the plans, and the plans for different communities can vary considerably depending on the anticipated risk and the geography and the infrastructure of the area. But nonetheless, they are accepted there are accepted frameworks for creating an emergency plan, which are helpful and improve efficiency. And in our community, we presently have the AWS and the RWS, and they serve us well. We have positive working relationships with local environmental groups such as MIVI and with Mosaic, the local forest company. The health of the river has improved over time from when it was, one of the most endangered rivers in the province, I believe, not just on Vancouver Island. And the wells have been replenished with the Arrowsmith Dam, with the water treatment facility. But we also know there are upstream electoral areas. There are neighboring First Nations within the same watershed. There are demands upon the watershed that go beyond our drinking water and fish habitat, whether it be for agriculture, groundwater replenishment, or for other needs. With climate change, increasing drought, wildfire risk, these are all factors which may lead us to one day need to take a broader approach than we do at present. A watershed board can bring together other stakeholders and community members with a common focus on protecting the watershed, any watershed, to increase resilience and to ensure sustainable, equitable water management. They can make recommendations to support these goals. So in my reading about the makeup of various watersheds around the country and internationally, it made me think of the members at the the Mount Arrowsmith Biosphere region and the members at the round table. They have several organizations and groups represented, and they come together and share information. So this motion, again, as I understand it, is not about establishing a watershed board in our area currently or perhaps ever, but it is about setting the stage to have a framework established that will assist local governments in BC go about this task when the need is there. And given the time that it generally takes for a resolution to move forward to the UBCM and then on to the provincial level and to then get acted upon, I think supporting this here will likely mean several years before it comes about. And so for that reason, I would like to support it. I think it's a lot like the expression, in kind of Western terms, is you put the saddle on the fence and it just lets the horse start to get a sense of, okay, there's something out there. I might be hearing more about this. So I'm inclined to support this. But again, as Councillor Grenz has mentioned, I think there's great misunderstanding out in the general community for those who are following this about what it would actually mean.
Thank you, Councillor Beal. Councillor Martin disappeared, but I thought she had her hand up. Councillor Martin, are you still there? Okay, first time speakers, Councillor Press. Okay. So yeah, I'll let Councillor Martin get in if can. Okay, so I'll just do a couple comments for the benefit of the public and so forth, recognizing that the RDN already established the Drinking Water and Watershed Protection Technical Advisory Committee was formed in 2009 by the RDN board. And so the terms of reference and so forth includes participation about all the RDN partners that we have, of which the city of Parksville is one. And I can assure you that, as Councillor Grenz has mentioned, that this board is perhaps conducting studies and hearing delegations that exceed any other provincial requirements that are already out there or should be out there. I looked recently to see when their last meetings were. So the last meeting they had, and I looked up the agenda, was May 21st, 2 weeks ago. And I looked at the attendees, and they had representatives from every one of the neighboring municipalities and the electoral districts as well. We're all part of it, as well as the RDN staff and all the professional staff and our people were listed. As the agenda, it was actually showing, they were listening to those groups, delegations that were perhaps environmental in nature, making suggestions on what we should be aware of, what we should be looking for, or perhaps some observations that they made that maybe our technical committee hadn't been aware of. So it's a very active committee, and I was very impressed with it. So To me, this is a local initiative that the RDN have put forth since 2009, and it's working very well. So to me, this undermines that authority. And so therefore, I will not be supporting the motion on the floor today. Thank you. Then Councillor Martin never came back. Councillor Gore, back to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate all the comments that the councillors have made, some apprehensions, some questions about duplication of effort. I happen to speak also to the staff and other folks at the RDN. They had very nice input on what the Technical Advisory Committee does and what it really actually does not do. In their own words, it's a great idea to have a watershed board. I think we really need it. Well, if we think the Technical Advisory Committee does, honestly, all it does is give advice. Okay, that's what an advisory committee is. It has no governance attached to it. It has no formal way of advocating for the watershed regions together. There is no way for them to hold the province to account when a watershed board will have provincial representation. When the province is bringing all these bills and everything that you talked about, and now the Bill 15 surpassing all the consultations, in my opinion, having the province at this board, hopefully in the future, will hold them to account. You want us to build all the housing. We want to make sure all these homes that we are building have running water in them. This is where we have that direct consultations with the province. And honestly, the current state, we have so many different jurisdictions with the water going through all the electoral areas, and there's no real mechanism for us to all sit together and plan for the watershed, how it's going to work. The specific roles what a watershed board would do, and I'll repeat this, would be a collaborative vision for the watershed region, right? Having some watershed plans like drought, flood, water sustainability plans, right? Breaking down all the silos that already exist, like within Oceanside, we're not really talking to each other, all the different water purveyors and everything. And it does provide input to land use decisions. It's not really about stopping, but it is about providing input on land use decisions. Watershed restoration efforts, compliance, and also it's a great avenue for conflict resolution. The situation does not have to get as bad, hopefully, as Cowichan for us to wake up and say, hey, we need a watershed board. That's the premise of this resolution. And when we work together collaboratively, we get attention of senior levels of government. Like an example that I shared with Councillor Beal this morning, when Seashell was able to secure $117 million of funding from the feds to build extra reservoirs earlier this year. So I see a lot of opportunity in a watershed for people to come together and talk about water in the region as a whole, rather than when the water in the river comes into our ERWS system and into our pipes. This is Parksville's water. You know how it's all connected. And a very important aspect, in my opinion, of a watershed board is also ecological restoration, biodiversity, health. And this is why is the time for people to start thinking about this. With the changing climate and the increasing droughts, I think we don't need to be in a position like the other regions have, who finally decided to take it upon themselves. We are telling the province, it's your resource that we manage, and you're asking us to build all this density and all this. We want you to be present with monies attached to it for the development and the operation of these watershed boards. So I'm hoping for a support. Like I said, it's a framework that will be set up by the province. It will not be mandated. It will have communities like ours who are ready, they can opt in. Yes, we want to be a part of this. We want to form a watershed board. So all the members come together and form a watershed board. It's not forcing anyone, but hopefully there's enough movement in the community to think about the drinking water that we can have this for Oceanside.
Thank you. To be clear, we already locally, we are here elected as legal representatives or elected officials anyways of the city of Parksville. So it's up to us to make recommendations and so forth to the benefit of our citizenry, of course. And we already have in place the ERWS and the AWS anyways that provides the water for the city of Parksville and to our habitat surrounding. And now we are in constant communication, constant with the province in every aspect of everything we do with the amount of reports that we do. I've seen the reports and they're extensive and there's huge collaboration with the province. So we already have that going on constantly to address new situations, climate change, drought, fire, and all this type of thing. Our staff are constantly going back and forth with them in collaboration with the rest of the individual groups in our watershed, which is the RDM, so to speak, and which we are also, as you can see by who's on the agenda package, anyways, the staff that are there. So we are already having on the ground recommendations from where we live. Your situation, your plan is perhaps overreaching, I find, is that I feel that it'd be better to have a local authority controlling what's happening and protecting our own watersheds, and we can do it. And we actually do all the time. When it comes to, you say, like you're talking about Squamish or whatever was putting in reservoirs, well, I can assure you that after we get a comprehensive water plan back, that we have in play right now, that we're getting preliminary reports are going to happen this summer. So we will be back at that table, meeting with the province and saying, with, as Councillor Wood says, the amount of housing we have, and we will be back at the table with the province saying, now we need, for whatever the recommendations, scientific recommendations are, we will be at the province and the federal table to say, now we need infrastructure improvements for whatever the engineers have and consultants have come back with. We're going to be at that table. We're not going to wait for a province to say, you should be doing this. We're going to be at that table as soon as we get the report back. I can guarantee you. So and we've already set up initial collaborations with the province. They're expecting it. They know what's coming. So we are already working to that end. So I think the local situation is a far more superior way of going. That way you can address our needs. Councillor Wood, go ahead.
I will mention that Councillor Martin's back if you just want to go with first.
Go ahead, Councillor Wood. Councillor Martin, if you could hear me. We'll hear Councillor Wood first, and then I'll go over to you.
Through yourself, Mayor, on a strategy side of things, if we see the province with housing targets that we're building a lot in Parksville and we're still not meeting those targets, I think asking them to help us form a framework which might slow those targets. I don't know why the province would do that. It's like asking workers, to me, an analogy might be is workers asking their employer to help them form a union. I take this resolution seriously, and I reached out to Aaron Stone, who was the chair of CVRD, and he was the mayor of Ladysmith. And he was there for the forming of the watershed board down there. And they didn't ask the province, hey, can we form a watershed board that might push back on some of your targets? They just formed it. And they worked really hard and they got money because they were a really strong advocacy group. And that's how you form a watershed board with teeth, is you get everybody together without asking the province. If you ask the province to do something that is against their goals, it is not going to work. And they're very clear about their goals right now. And so I just wanted to mention that, like, on a strategy tactic side of things, I just don't see how it would possibly work and why we need the province. Why do we need the province to give us the go ahead? You don't. You form it here, and that's how you push back. It's the same as kind of UBCM or FCM. We don't ask the province or the feds if we can get together and push back. We just do it.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Martin, you're back. Try your microphone again. Whatever you did last time, try again. We do not hear you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay. this technology thing is crazy, but sorry to, I've heard most every comment and I really appreciate this. I just wanted to share my thoughts. I've been involved and concerned about water in the Englishman River, particularly all my life. So, you know, what Councillor Gower has mentioned and way he thought about the water board idea, I understand. I can hear what he's saying. However, this idea of another level of government at this time doesn't seem to be appropriate for me personally, from my perspective. On the other hand, I had some thoughts about what could be done. Maybe this idea could go forward if we in fact are doing it in Parksville or want to do it, then it would go to EVICC, then to UBCM. But before we do anything, we have to do it ourselves. And is it the right thing for Parksville? That's what I'm thinking. To do something for the whole province and an idea doesn't seem appropriate to me either. There's all the other comments and everything that each of the councillors have mentioned. I don't want to go over all that again. So these are just, you know, maybe more research has to be done. Maybe it has to be deferred, but these are my thoughts. And thank you for letting me share under the circumstances.
Thank you,
you.
Councillor Martin.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess maybe we'll follow up on my question to Councillor Gore around the perception in the community around this motion. Because I've heard very, very strongly that the community sees this motion as a way to stop development in Parksville. So I really would hope that I've also, like Councillor Wood, I just got back from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and there I had the opportunity to speak to a number of people who have either a watershed board or a water board in their community, including folks that are in the Okanagan where they actually do have serious concerns around water. And what they've told me is that A, the watershed boards and water boards have zero influence over housing development, zero. B, they have no governance capabilities. And C, their primary purpose is to accept funding and then do community education around water conservation, not putting, swapping out septic systems that are leaking, and also providing some grant programs for folks to be able to get off of septic or upgrade their septic systems so that they aren't harming the aquifer. These are all very valid things, but these are also things that we have here. But I would hate to pass this resolution and confuse the community into thinking that what this resolution will do is stop development in Parksville, because it absolutely will not. And I really hope that you can clarify that for the community.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Then over to Councillor Gore.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I don't think this resolution overtly or covertly is trying to stop development at all. It's not. And I cannot really control what the perception is out in the community. I am not active on social media. Everybody's aware. I'm not how it was perceived. Like I said, it's very clear what watershed board I sent out to council for the roles of a watershed board. And in Okanagan, they probably don't have the same kind of input as other watershed board might. Terms of reference will differ from region to region, what a watershed board does. Currently, like I said, there are no elected officials in that technical advisory committee. We are trying to bring local governments in Oceanside together when we're talking about the watershed governance. So I ideally think we need to have these conversations even with the province, asking us to build all that housing. For them, it is also their resource. Water is fresh water, it's their resource. They keep on, to me, if we don't pass such things, we are taking on provincial responsibilities for making sure there's water in our aquifers and everything. That's a provincial responsibility. We are just managing that for them. Let's not take on what's supposed to be a provincial responsibility. As much as I like what Colwood is doing with the medical clinic, but again, it's in the same vein, we should not be taking on what are provincial responsibilities. Same thing with this. Like, I strongly believe there's a lot of research. There's a lot of people I've spoken with who are doing their PhD thesis on this, why we need watershed boards. To extrapolate what's happening in Okanagan or the difficulties that they faced in Cowichan to Oceanside, I think it's completely out of line. We have our unique challenges. In my opinion, the unique challenges for Oceansides are those silos that we have, where we have Area F now looking at incorporation. Area G is again growing so fast. You know, we have no way of knowing about the water usage between all these different municipalities. There's no way of planning even. I personally can see for Oceanside that a watershed board will have a strong input into the regional growth strategy, how it will look like, where the growth will happen, and how we will manage growth. So that's how I see it. But like I said, the terms of reference will be different. What's the perception in the community? I haven't spoken to people. I haven't told people like, hey, if we pass this, there will be no development in Parksville starting tomorrow. That is not the intent. I just want to make sure we are responsible with water governance in Oceanside, and that's what it is.
Councillor Grant.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification, Councillor Gore. And, you know, generally speaking, I can see the motion has been adjusted quite a lot from the original one, and this one is much more palatable to me than the previous one or two iterations of it were that came before council. I do want to read out what the province is currently doing on watersheds, just for context, if I may.
Go ahead, Councillor Grant.
So number one, the province is developing a watershed security strategy. So they're actively working on this, which is being co-developed with First Nations and other stakeholders. This strategy aims to guide collaborative watershed-based planning, governance, and restoration across British Columbia. It emphasizes co-governance, climate resilience, and Indigenous rights under the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, DRIPA. Number two, they're implementing a watershed security fund, which I believe the first intake was 2024-2025, which is a $100 million starting fund, a watershed security fund, which is in partnership with the federal government. And I believe there's also other stakeholders that are donating to this. It supports watershed restoration, monitoring, and planning, especially in regions with Indigenous-led or collaborative governance models. As a sidebar, I will note that our DWWP under the regional district does have Indigenous representation from both First Nations in our region, and it does have stakeholders from, including Mosaic, which I think maybe people may not realize, and that obviously is a significant landowner in the watershed. So that is already in place, by the way, in the regional district. By the way, also, the regional district is already eligible to apply to this watershed security fund for funding to support the watershed and watershed restoration, watershed protection. It's already able to do that through the regional district. Ongoing work on this watershed security fund is creating permanent funding stream that enables long-term watershed work. There are a few other things that the province is already doing, but I won't go on those. But the key thing is that not only is there already a strategy being developed that may include what this motion is asking for, but B, it's already funded. It's already providing funds for local governments, and not just local governments. First Nations can apply to the fund. Nonprofits can apply to the fund. So I think the concerns in this motion suggest that we don't know what is already in place and are asking the province to do something that that had we done a little bit more research, we'd be able to just take advantage of, for example, the fund. That said, I appreciate where this is going, but I think that maybe council would be willing to consider, oh, yeah, right. I remember the final thing. The final thing was that the proper process for these motions is to go first through the local area group, which is AVICC. This has not been approved at this table to go to AVICC before, and then from there getting approval from all the gathered municipalities for that organization to go on to UBCM. I don't see any urgent need for this to bypass the AVICC. And that reason alone for me is a reason not to support this unless there's some urgent need. That said, I do have a motion that I would like to propose, and I don't know the process around this. Maybe we lay this one on the table and allow me to bring that other one. That would, I think, is urgent and does speak to the concerns that we're hearing in the community and what I believe Councillor Gore's intent may be behind the motion he's bringing. If I don't know if laying on the table or what is the way to go, I might defer to staff on that.
We're just in committee of the whole at this particular point. Okay. Councillor Beal, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Grenz. I've been reading up about watershed boards in Ontario. There are 36. I've been reading about the one in the Okanagan Basin and what their primary concerns are. And I will say, then perhaps I'm being a bit naive here, but at no point in time was I really considering a lot about planning for a residential building or housing and the like, but focusing more on the actual, health of water and sustainability and also fish. I've been thinking a lot about fish and it's Wild Salmon Day just recently, and they need cold water, which means they need shade over the water and so on. But so looking at these various watershed boards, it was about, the health of the river, of the aquifer and so on. And that's where the focus was, the environmental. And that's what I was thinking about. But I did not stumble across the local watershed security fund at the provincial level. So I appreciate learning a bit about that. And I'm wondering if, and I will backtrack just a little bit in that I too, when Councillor Gore first brought this forward, I thought, well, what's the urgency? Like, why here in a way, like, there's a deadline coming up, we need to get it in, and maybe it could be next year, and there's a little bit more advanced planning, et cetera. So learning about the watershed, but I do think that it takes quite a while for things to move forward, and there's no harm in bringing up something that will be of growing interest and concern, I think, in many municipalities around the province. My question, actually, I do have a question for Councillor Gore. I'm just wondering if, if this motion did not, when it comes back into regular council meeting, if this motion was not successful, Councillor Gore, would you be open to perhaps working on this and learning even a bit more to bring it back so that next year it could actually go to AVICC and go through that process, as Councillor Grenz has mentioned?
Go ahead, Councillor Gore. You have a question directed to you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So a couple of things. Talk about AVICC. Well, that's not necessary. That's not a required thing that needs to go through AVICC to go to UBCM. Since this motion talks about BC, all the municipalities in BC, AVICC is a Vancouver Island forum for, situations and concerns of the Vancouver Island specific communities. This is very broad. This is for the province. So I don't see a reason why it needs to go to AVICC first. We have done this previously at this council. We have brought forth resolutions directly to UBCM. So it is following the process, in my opinion. Second, I do like the idea of this being discussed at the RDN. So perhaps another amendment could be that this motion be also sent to the RDN at the same time for some input. I personally would really like to see if this passes. I hope it passes. At UBCM, have other, whenever a resolution comes forward, as you folks know, everybody gets a chance to speak the pros and the cons. I personally would really like to hear what other regions in BC think about such a watershed. Maybe it will not pass at UBCM, and maybe there will be a further discussion, and people will be supportive of such a thing. And that's really good that Councillor Grenz talked about the strategy that the province is working on. And in my opinion, I think this resolution will be a nudge to the province, like, hey, you already have these things in place. Why don't you create watershed boards or have a framework for watershed boards where this strategy fits right into? So this is where I'm at. I really think, like I said, there's a lot of people doing a lot of research on this. They're very convinced the watershed boards are important. They bring some governance and concrete work plans in the watershed where there's tangible differences that we can make into the communities. This is where I am. Thanks.
I would just like to comment that maybe as a suggestion here, recognizing that the city of Parksville has requested a comprehensive water study that we're dropping close to $500,000 on, which is coming due soon. And in that, recognizing that part of the terms of reference was to look for sources of water for the city of Parksville. This is a Made in Parksville program. So by some of the conceptual ideas that were thrown to them and they threw back at us was things like they have experience in getting water all across Canada, this group. So things like side stream water diversion in from the streams in the flood season and so forth would go great headway to actually solve the water shed restoration, because we're relying on rainwater and so forth to recharge the reservoirs that would be advantaged of. So we're not draining down our well system. We're not draining down the Englishman off the base flow. We're actually just taking the otherwise runaway water that would just be flooding in the winter season and storing that. So all sorts of ideas like that are going to be forthcoming. So I would suggest that maybe it would be best to just not put this through, withdraw this at this particular time, and look at it after we get the information. This report is going to be huge, folks. It's going to have everything in it that we've all asked for our particular region, not Squamish, not Cowichan. This is for Made in Parksville. So I urge everybody, just be as patient as you can. It's coming soon. So at least get that report out here. And then maybe we'll be able to use, as Councillor Gren said, about the going for the sustainability funds for the watershed. Maybe we can have a suggestion from this consultant group that now's the time that you need to protect this particular watershed that's in your area because it's under threat of something. And here's what you can do. And if we can go after the province to get that, we'll do that. But we'll have the consultants and the engineers tell us that. So, and I have to say, I'm very impressed with all of council's commitment to all the research that you've all done on this anyway. So a lot of work everybody's put into it. We've all spoken to a lot of very technical people and to try and get what is the best fit for Parksville. So thank you, council, for doing your homework. It's much appreciated. So, oh, I thought you were pointing to. Okay, Councillor Wood, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. One last comment. I know that Councillor Gore brought Cowichan Watershed Board as an example, and they didn't use the province. And we know that it's the province's responsibilities and the province forcing, yelling for a lot of housing. I don't think if you want this to be successful, if we wanted a watershed board to be successful, you don't want the province involved. I would support something that didn't involve them, and we don't need to bring a resolution to the UBCM for that, since we're not going to be asking the province for anything, and we form it just like the Cowichan Watershed Board did, between elected officials, First Nations, electoral area directors, and that's what they did. And I know you brought it forward as an example, and that's how they formed it. And so that's what I would support something like that. I don't think you want the province, who we're kind of trying to push back on with something like this, you don't want their permission. You don't want them to help you form the framework. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up, folks. Councillor Beale, go ahead. Final comment. Something new.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd just like to say that it seems to me that something like this might in fact further inform or strengthen the watershed security strategy that's being formed by the province or has been formed. And I also do not see this in any way undermining the good work that's been done in this area. Not at all. I see that once again, more like the forming of a sort of a recipe. And just like I might look at a recipe and any cook might say, well, I'm going to adjust it a little bit here for the people who are around the table or what I have on hand. It's just a guide. And that's how I see this, and I'll support it.
Final comment. Go ahead.
This is, very new information though. Like, I think this letter was shared with council as well, the one from last year that RDN sent out. That I know we look up to the RDN as our next immediate upper government. Sorry, I just want to read the resolution here. That the Regional District of Nanaimo directs staff to write a letter on behalf of the RDN to the Ministry of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship to formally request that an appropriately resourced body be struck to initiate discussions on a regional water supply strategy for the French Creek Water Region, also called the Oceanside Region. So RDN already supports that, right?
That passes.
So, and that was passed resolution. So RDN wants this, and we are saying to the RDN, bringing it at the UBCM. I think we're just following on the works that's already been done. So I look forward to your support.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. We're in committee stage, so we're just moving to support this or not at this point, and then it becomes a recommendation. Is that correct?
If I may, yes, so the committee in this format can make recommendations to council. So you can decide if you want to support this motion just in committee, and then that gets reported back to council where you vote on it again, essentially to endorse. Or you can make other recommendations out of this committee to council for consideration when you go back into council.
Okay. Councillor Grant?
Thank you. Appreciate all the discussion. It seems to me like the suggestion the mayor was making around maybe deferring this until the water study might be appropriate, because I don't see any huge urgency on this right now, especially further to my comments around going to APICC first, which is the proper and appropriate way to do it. And I guess maybe the question through to staff on whether, I believe that report's supposed to come pretty soon, right?
Preliminary, yeah. Go ahead, CAO Kaler.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Grenz, that we have a preliminary presentation from KWL on June 16th in the open council meeting, and also at the ERWS meeting on the 19th, I believe that is the Thursday of that week, just on the progress of the comprehensive water study.
So having said that, I get, but I think it's important that we take this off the table right now, and then perhaps when we get that report back, then we can look at another possible suggestion of what water board preservation would look like after we have the report back. But it would be. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Question to staff and perhaps our folks who are at the water boards. I don't remember reading the TORs for the water study looking at governance of the watershed specifically. So we might be waiting on the study, which will never even talk about watershed governance, is what I'm thinking.
If I may, through the mayor, I believe it was very broad, but I think it was specific to the city of Parksville.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so on the motion to support this motion as moved by Councillor Gore, all those in support of this motion? That's supported by Councillor Gore and Councillor Beal. All those opposed? That is opposed by Councillor Fraz, Councillor Grenz, Councillor Wood, Councillor Martin, Mayor O'Brien. That does not pass. Thank you.
If I may bring another motion in the committee?
Into the committee? Oh, we're still in committee? Yeah, and you want it in committee, or you want to go back into open?
I think I'd like to bring it to committee, and then we can discuss it, whether to recommend it through the council.
Sure.
So I've prepared a motion that I think does have some urgency to it to bring to UBCM, and I think would also be an important thing to get into the public conversation. And so I believe our corporate officer has it, that she could bring it up for us, and I've printed out a few of them.
Is that pictures?
I don't know. Would you like me to read it out, or?
I can digest better if I read it myself,
Okay.
honestly. Thanks. Okay, well, 2-minute reading break.
So I'm going to move that whenever everyone's ready.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this, Councillor.
So the motion would be to bring
Seconded
this
by
to
Councillor
UBC.
Wood,
Yeah.
moved
Yeah.
by Councillor Grens. What's up on your slide presentation here, and seconded by Councillor Wood. Councillor Grens to speak to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm bringing forward this resolution to advocate for what I see as being a smarter and more sustainable way to approach the province's housing targets. We are all committed to building more homes. This is a top issue in every election we've had recently, and we have had a few, that housing is pretty much the #1 issue. But the problem is that the province's housing targets are based largely on metrics like population growth and development activity, as well as vacancy rate and housing demand in a given community. We've recently approved a housing needs report at this table to send to the province that they required of us to deliver. And now we've seen that the province is turning around our housing needs report and turning us and asking us to fulfill the needs that we have identified and put us on a list of communities that will have housing targets. The problem is that we risk overloading systems and encouraging growth in areas increasingly vulnerable to wildfires, floods, droughts, and other climate-driven challenges. And by the way, even if climate change isn't an issue for you, we do have to recognize that natural disasters still happen and that they are more likely to happen in certain regions of the province. So why does this matter? So this motion is not about slowing housing. It's about sustainable climate smart growth. Building in resilient regions now means fewer emergency response costs, fewer infrastructure failures, and safer long-term communities. If we fail to consider watershed health or system capacity, we're not planning. We're actually gambling. So what this resolution asks for is asking the province to integrate watershed capacity, infrastructure readiness, healthcare access, and climate resiliency into the formula for assigning housing targets. It asks the province to prioritize densification in regions that are demonstrably climate resilient and support municipalities and First Nations with the technical and financial resources to assess these critical systems. This resolution, I believe, is strategically aligned with the province's goals under the climate preparedness strategy and the watershed security strategy, but it's also not about opposing new housing growth. It's about modernizing how we plan that growth to reflect the 21st century risks and responsibilities. So I hope that council will support recommending this through to the main council meeting, just to modify my comments, so that we can ensure that Parksville is advocating for policies that don't just meet housing demand, but do so in a way that protects our water infrastructure and the well-being of future generations.
Thank you. Councillor Wood, further comment?
Thanks, Mayor. The only reason I wouldn't support this is because it wasn't my idea. It's incredible. Love it. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for this. You see me smiling here because it's all the things that, like keep me awake at night and shake my head when I get another letter from the Minister of Housing. Like, I really wish that I could take him on a tour of our area and so forth and see what's what's happening, and also of our watershed and our limited resources we have. So thank you. This is well thought out, and I think your timing is excellent. I will be supporting this. Councillor Gore.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor, for bringing this forward. I really like what I see in this. It's really good stuff. The only question I have, can you tell me what municipality in BC has watershed health, infrastructure capacity, healthcare access, and climate resiliency? If we use these metrics, I can tell you not one municipality in BC will put their hand up, hey, we are ready for more housing. So I don't want to be actually a province who's being told by the feds that this is how much housing you're going to build. And when our Prime Minister Carney says, build, baby, build, Hopefully you can show us some monies to go with it. I really like what it says, but I don't know how practical this is, to be honest, to see anywhere in BC that have access to healthcare, like surplus. Hey, we can have 1,000 more people come in and we'll still, all of you give you guys primary healthcare workers.
Let's stick with this.
Or it is
Stick with
to this, yeah.
Okay.
Healthcare access.
Right.
Climate resiliency. I don't know which municipalities in BC are climate resilient and can accommodate more growth without support. So I like what it says, but I don't know how practical it is, honestly, like to see where the province can say, yes, you're right. And this is where we can direct the growth towards. So I just want to hear what other councillors have to say. I like what it says, but I don't know how practical it is.
Could I respond to that?
Yeah.
No.
I got to go to first time speakers. Then I'll come back to you. Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, compliments to Councillor Grenz for including everything in there. I think in some respects, I like it. And yet I also wonder, how practical. I think it's a little bit like which comes first, the chicken and the egg. There are sometimes folks who say, well, you build the housing and then you're going to get the people there to, to deliver the healthcare and so on. It's like, it's not one and then the other is planning, but it's planning for everything. What is great about this, I think, is that all those elements are delineated. They're all acknowledged as being critical because they are critical. Yet, one thing I do worry about is what amount of staff work would need to be involved for this to move ahead and what would have to be displaced. If this was to come about in a very short time frame. That's one thing I wonder about.
And just point of clarity, is this, you're just providing this as a possible UBCM resolution? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, or
So you've done.
or I'm open to discussing whether this would be a letter to the minister. But I can provide more comments once everyone has had a chance.
Okay. Councillor Martin, do you have your hand up or is that? Yes. Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I think it's, yes, these concepts are all so important, but again, is it practical to go right, to be done in time for UBCM? If it is, I think it will have the, province listen to us more. This is just my own personal thoughts, because what happens is they give us, like we've said, they give us all these things and you lose sleep over it. And what can we do about it? Now they got to think, well, this is what is coming first. Can they help us with this? Or is there some consideration with some of these policies that are on this letter? So whether it should go to letter or it should go to UBCM, whatever is suggested is a good idea as far as I'm concerned. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Martin. Yeah, I particularly would like to see this on the floor of the UBCM because there's going to be a lineup to that. This will be a great discussion because it's saying what many municipalities are saying.
Yeah.
But how? So thank you for that. Councillor Perez? No? Okay. So Councillor, I was going to go to Councillor Grenz now as the second time speaker.
Thank you. And thank you so much. I appreciate the comments from council. I just want to address some of the discussion items here. First off, I just got back from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, as mentioned, and this was a topic of discussion among several communities that I ran into, including Langford, which is notoriously developed. And they are on the list to get housing targets. And the mayor of Langford showed me the email that he received from the province. So I can be very confident that this would receive wide support and would send a strong message to the province. Some more context on this. I fully recognize that it could be seen as a big ask to the province, but we're not asking really the province to do anything that they're not asking us to do. They're asking us to update our OCPs. They're asking us to do infill housing. and they're asking us to plan out for more population. So we do that at our community level. We decide where in our community we're going to use for different things. We want to make sure we set aside parkland. We want to make sure that we set aside areas that are going to be close to amenities for housing. For example, we would want to make sure that the OCP speaks to placing housing near transit and all this sort of stuff. The province, I don't see, is actually doing that. And then speaking with staff members, they all have, this has come up in meetings with the province, that the province hasn't considered where transit is currently located, maybe in a floodplain. Yet the province is asking municipalities to densify on a floodplain. If the province is serious about sea level rise being a concern, why would we build in areas that are only not underwater today because there's a dike? Imagine if sea level rise gets higher than that dike, and now we've got even more people on that land. Who's going to pay the bill for if there's a flood? It's going to be the province. It's going to be the federal government. So that speaks to the concern around the cost to do the work to identify which areas are resilient. There is nowhere that's perfectly resilient. We don't live in a simulation, or maybe we do, but there's nowhere that's going to be perfect. But there are clearly places that are better than others. It takes minimal amount of research to determine that it's probably better not to build on a floodplain and put a whole bunch of high rises on a floodplain versus on higher ground. So I don't think that let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good on this, is basically what I'm saying. All I'm asking the province to do is what all of our community members are asking us to do, is if there's more housing, then we also need other things: green space, water, doctors, infrastructure, transit, cart before horse, sure, but we put the cart before the horse because we have an OCP. Our OCP says where the cart and the horse are going to go, and then eventually the horse or the cart show up. So let's I think only ask the province to honor the work we do by reciprocating, and also do the same work at a provincial level. That's all I'm asking.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. And to a couple of comments, whether it's practical or not, well, if it's not practical, that's precisely the point, is to show that what the federal government is going to be asking and what the provincial government is asking us to do is impractical. That's exactly the point. It looks like, there's going to be some metrics to measure this and this and this and that, and it will show that some areas are better and some areas are worse. It tells the province, hey, we are juggling all of these things while you are telling us to do, just build. And the feds are going to say the same thing. And they're both going to bring forward legislation that gets them to surpass and go around environmental checks and First Nations checks. They're both going to do that. And so is it practical for the province to, come up with some metrics? It's not in their goals right now. But that doesn't mean we can't ask for it and get, a better way of measuring things than the housing targets that they're forcing on us. So, whether it's practical or not, that's precisely the point, is to show that it's not practical and they need to kind of revise what they send us for targets. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I'm sensing the table here, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Carries unanimous. Thank you, Council. Great discussion. And thank you, Councillor Grens. Thank you. Good. We're going to send you to Ottawa more often. Really great ideas. Thank you. So I'm going to.
So I'll move that we leave the committee of the whole.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. If you'd like to reconvene into regular, yes. And seconded by Councillor Wood. We're back into regular meeting, folks.
So I think if I can move that we take the recommendations from the committee of the whole. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Do we have to vote out of moving out of committee of the whole? Okay, all those in favor of moving out? Okay. Okay.
I'd like to move that the council accept the recommendations of the committee of the whole.
So just,
seconded by Councillor Wood.
need to
Thank
clarify.
you.
Mr. Mayor, if we can just clarify that that's both items. The first item is the defeat of the motion put forward by Councillor Gore, and the second item is the motion, support of the motion put forward by Councillor Grens, just for clarification.
Precisely. Thank you. All those in favor? Those opposed? That is opposed by Councillor Gore and Councillor Beal. Thank you. That's good. Thank you. Okay, that carries. Thank you. Nice, healthy discussion. Thank you. Thank you for opening the door. Okay, so we're good. Are there any further notices of motion? We'll ask for our liaison reports now, please, from Councillor Beal. Go ahead.
Wasn't it too far?
Will we recommend or accept on both recommendations?
Oh, okay. All right.
It's been confusing.
It's okay, it passed. Councillor Beal, you get to do a liaison report. No, go ahead. Councillor Beal.
Okay, thank you. First of all, the Arts Council. And I'd like to take this opportunity to remind everyone that the labyrinth in the community park has been repainted recently. And although it's not a direct activity from the Arts Council, the Macmillan Building certainly played a role in terms of their preparation for it. So I'll include it here, and it's very artistic. So artists have laid down the foundation elements, and the community members were invited to add to it. And a colorful and wonderful example of community engagement is what transpired. And there will be a celebration to mark the refreshed labyrinth this coming Saturday, June 7th at 11 o'clock. I'm very sorry to say that I am not able to attend as I have a library board meeting at the same time, but I do hope that other members of council will be able to attend. Also with the Arts Council, there is a strawberry social and piano party coming up Tuesday, June 10th. At 11 a.m. at the Mac Community Garden. The piano is coming out for the season, and strawberries will be served courtesy of the PQB Fruit Tree Project. Yeah, should be good. Okay,
Yummy.
on to the next one. Yeah.
I'm still thinking.
All right,
about those
thank you.
strawberries.
I'd also, moving on from food, École Bellina Secondary School. It was an absolute pleasure to attend the recent art show put on by some of the students at École Bellina Secondary. There was a wide variety of art medium presented. There was photography, painting, sculpture, drawing, and it was great to have a chance to meet these young artists and talk with them about their work, but also about their plans going forward. And it was also very nice to have Councillor Gore, Councillor Grenz, and myself were all able to attend. And a shout out to teacher Jessie Lee Spence for extending the invitation. And hopefully there'll be more and better examples of this going forward in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other liaison reports? Councillor Gore, go ahead to.
Yes, thank you.
question for staff.
Appreciate it, Mayor. Just clarification from the committee of the whole recommendations that were adopted. I just want to make sure I voted how I intended to vote was to accept my defeat of my motion, but also vote in favor of the councillor's motion. Is that how my vote went? Okay.
If I may, through the mayor, they were taken together in that, so the vote, we have you down as being opposed because they weren't split out. So the committee, the whole recommendations, and I tried to confirm that with council, was the two items, the defeat of the motion that Councillor Gore put forward and the acceptance of the motion that Councillor Grenz put forward. So at the moment initially we had Councillor Beal and Councillor Gore opposed. Then Councillor Beal said she was not opposed, but we do still have you as opposed. So if that's incorrect, you can let us know.
So procedurally, what I said, I support where my motion was, so I'm opposed to, okay. And I support councillor's motion as well. So I hope that's reflected, and I supported that motion.
if I may, that's not how the motion was presented. It was together, so you have to, you can't break them out now. Without a redo of the vote, it has to be, they were taken together, so
So-
unless we redo it, that's,
I'm in support of his motion, so however my vote wants.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, you,
I'm in support of Councillor's motion, so I don't know, that's,
If I may, the minutes will reflect how it was, how the vote went,
yes,
but people can hear that
we
you're
heard you.
stating that.
Yeah, we heard you here, yeah. Before we go into in camera, Councillor Wood, go ahead.
Just a quick comment on that. The minutes for the committee of the whole will still show, your support for your motion. And then all you were doing was accepting the committee's recommendations. And that's all that motion was we're accepting both of those.
Thank you. Clarification. Pursuant to section 91G of the Community Charter, Council proceed to a closed meeting to consider an item relating to litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality.